I agree. I think the copper pricing, the need for copper, this base metal stuff, is probably closer than most people think. And if we mentioned earlier on in this video, is if you don't have the inventory, inventory just doesn't pop up, And I'm very bullish on your other projects, and we could be talking for hours on those things, but the inventory is what counts today, and infrastructure, and when you're starting at a starting point and one's financing, the signs for the financiers to start pulling the funds for you for projects like this, you will be bolting out of the gates, right? And that's how it always is every single time, right? It doesn't take a genius to see it. It's people, unfortunate people with white hair and no hair are the ones that have said, well, that's what happened here and there. And I think that's where investors should look at, right? And is that the guys that has all those inventories will be the one that moves first, and the guys that, man, I've been many occasions when I'm an investor of a small cap and they go, oh, it hasn't floated down yet. The money hasn't floated down yet.
No, well, as I say, if the copper price rises and runs, like lithium has, then the only way you make money out of that is to produce copper metal at the time and sell it into that rising price. You don't make money because you've got a big resource base.
Correct. Yeah. Or potential.
Maybe you'll get a market cap kick, but as I said, are we in the market for the market cap kick, or are we in the market to make money and maybe give a dividend to shareholders? Well, as a founder with a group of people of this company, that's what we got into it for. We got into it to make a commercial return and pay a dividend. That's really what we got it in for. Market cap you need, obviously, for raising funds and all those sorts of things, but it's not the be-all and end-all of what a copper developer is about. A copper developer is about developing projects and producing copper plate and making money when the copper price goes for the run. The other thing too, a couple of little anecdotes for you, and if you don't believe me, do the maths yourself. All right. I had a look at, because the whole electrification market's intriguing, I think. I had a look at the metal content of a vehicle, and had a look at the amount of steel, the amount of aluminium, the amount of copper in it, and did some rough numbers. If I double the price of steel, the cost of that car goes up $2,000 US per unit. If I double the price of aluminium, the cost of that car goes up $1,000 per unit. If I double the cost of copper, the price of that car goes up $90 US. So if I'm sitting there and I'm trying to buy a car, and someone says to me, that's going to cost you $2,000 more, I'll go and look for another car. If someone says $90, $100, oh, just buy it. So you see the difference with copper. But the key then is, the copper's in everything. It's in your phone, it's in your cameras, it's in your sound system, it's in your electric cable, it's in the car. Every battery I've ever looked at's got a couple of copper connectors hanging out of it. And you have a look at battery technology, and I keep saying it, if you want to look at battery technology, compare it to floppy disks. Remember the old floppy disks? Go and have a look at the history of floppy disks. It's a 10-year cycle, that's all it is. Right now, there's companies that are reducing the amount of lithium in batteries. They're producing batteries without graphite. They're reducing the nickel and cobalt in batteries. And that's what technology does. It's like the zinc market. Zinc coatings get thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. So when the price goes up, technology takes over. It either replaces it or reduces it. Copper, you still need the cable, because to get the electrons to flow through the copper cable, it's still got to be that round. And you can't do anything about that. It's called physics and chemistry, or it's physics. The electrons flow, and if that's too small, it heats up and it'll burn out. So it's got to be a particular size. And that, in this whole electrification thematic, is the only consistency, is the copper cable and the copper connectors. The rest of it, I think, because it's new technology, be like the floppy disks. We started like that, 250 kilobytes. We got down to that at 2 meg, remember that? And then someone came up with a CD, and now it's a pen drive that does 1 tera. That's battery technology in my mind. That's where it's going to go, because we're smart people. That's where we'll end up. But that, whether the battery's that big or the battery's as big as this, It still needs a copper cable to deliver it to your house.
It's just like the
changes.
mobile phone, though, technology.
Yep.
It was a brick, and then now it's a mini computer,
Yep.
right? And then, with the flip screen, who knows where it's going to go.
Yep.
And that hasn't changed. Well, that's changed so much in such a little time, I should say.
Well, remember the brick? And what was the battery in that brick? Do you remember the battery in the brick? The Nokia battery?
Yeah.
Tantalum. Where's that gone? Disappeared.
In the museum, probably.
Yeah, remember Nokia was one of the biggest companies in the world when the mobile started and the flip Nokias and all that. How quickly did that disappear?
Yeah.
I mean, I was working in Kalgoorlie at the time when I first got my first car phone, which was like that big. It was like a brick. And as you say now, like they're only the size they are because we want a fancy camera on them. If they're just a phone, they're like that big. If you just get a phone, it's only that big. Yeah. And that's batteries.
And there's the classic, I think, is the phone in the car. That was the thing, right? And then suddenly they realized that you don't need a phone in the car. You can actually carry the phone with you.
That's it. It is, and that's technology, and it accelerates. And but as I say, you still need the electrons.
Yeah.
You still need the copper cable to deliver the electrons to whatever you're delivering it to. So and like that's our view, right? Well, that's not our view. That's my view. But the other bit about where we are and what we're trying to achieve, and I'm going to rob the wise words from our chairman, our venerable chairman, Gary. And we talked about this earlier. In these circumstances, in these conditions in the market, there's only a few projects get going. And I was talking to a broker analyst about this, I think last year, and he said the same thing. Like you go and review 20, 30, 40, 50 projects. They go through this type of cycle. Only 2 or 3 of them, as in Gary's words, get off the beach. And they then, as we say, go on to become a mid-tier company, and you can follow the history of all of them. And then the rest are all lining up in 5 years' time trying to achieve the same thing. And that really has been part of our strategy. So we grab resources, we grab quality assets in quality regions, what we think are quality regions. We apply our experience, our technology, whatever we can apply to get them to that starting line. And right now we're financing to get off the beach. And once we get off the beach and we're generating cash, then our destiny is in our own hands. And that's really what the drive has been all along. And as a group, as a board, and as an executive team, that's been our drive. We understand that when you're producing cash flow, a lot of these issues we talk about today about delays in this and delays in that's taken longer than usual. The market's bad. It doesn't matter to you because when you're making cash flow and you're commercial, you can carry on doing what you need to do. And that's really been the driver for us, regardless of outside influences. And as I said, being copper bulls, certainly very, very aware that sooner or later that copper market's going to